As we look at lesson J1, we're going to be talking about univariate, bivariate, and categorical data. So these are going to be our three different types of data that we are going to be talking about as we study data analysis. What does it mean to analyze data? And I want you to just pause the video for just a minute and talk to your shoulder partner. What does it mean to analyze data, and what kinds of data can we analyze? And so pause the video, and when you turn it back on, I'll put down a few ideas that I had that I want you to think about. When we analyze data, one thing we might be doing is we might be looking at graphs. So when we're talking about different graphs that we're seeing, a lot of times you see in papers graphs, you might be looking at tables of values. You might be looking at information that you collected, like maybe you had to ask people what their favorite pet was. So maybe you were looking at some data that way. When we look at it, we might look at the graphs and tables, and then we have to interpret what it's trying to tell us. So when we interpret that data, we're trying to interpret what's happening. We can look at different types of statistics, population, all kinds of different things. What kinds of data can we analyze? Well, usually if it's a numerical type of values, we can analyze that. We can find some different statistics that we're going to talk about in a minute. And then it might be different categories that we might be looking at, like what is your favorite pet? What's your favorite food? So we might have a category. When we look at the type of the three kinds of data, we're going to have univariate. Univariate, if you look at that prefix, uni is one variable. If we are looking at bivariate, that's going to be when we have two variables or two unknowns that we are looking at. So two pieces of information that we are looking at. So it doesn't really have to be a variable, but two pieces of information that we are going to look at. And then the last one is categorical data, and that is just when you are looking at different information in categories. So we talked about could be your favorite pet, could be favorite food, that type of stuff. Univariate data. What we are going to do right now is you're going to pause the video, and what the sub is going to do is going to print, have this under the document camera, and each class will be a little different as we are looking at this. And what I'm going to ask you to do is we're just going to put an X above your shoe size. So if you're shoe size 6, we're going to put an X, and we'll go around the room and get everyone's information. What if you're a 7.5? You'd put that here. Another person's a 7.5. You're a 10. You're an 11.5. Okay, and so what we are going to do is we're going to take a look at this data, and we are going to look at our each class period. We're going to look at that information. What does the graph tell us about our shoe size? So I'm going to pause the video, make sure you get everyone's down, and then we're going to answer these last two questions. When we are analyzing this, what does it tell us about our shoe size? Well, one of the most common things we could probably find is who has the most common size shoe. What's the most common in our 8th grade math class? Okay, that is often referred to as the mode when you did statistics. We can find the minimum. We should be able to see what our maximum shoe size is. So please write these down. And I'm going to have you compute these, or looking at our table that we did in class. We should be able to find the range. Range is when you take the max minus the minimum, okay, and get that one number. What is our range? You should be able, if you remember statistics, to find the mean. That means the average. I'm not going to have you compute that right now, but you could take all of and add all of our shoe sizes together and divide by the number of people. And the other one is the median. And median is our middle value. And that's where you would just count in from both sides. You'd count in from this side and say, oh, the median size is this. So these are different statistics that we can find when we have one variable, and they're numeric. It says, what variables can we analyze in this problem? How many variables are we analyzing? We are only looking at one variable. This would be univariate. What are we looking at? Only shoe size. We are now going to look at bivariate. We're going to look at two pieces of information. When we look at the two pieces of information, we're going to still use our same shoe sizes. But what we are going to do, and so what I'll have you do is we'll put this again under the document camera. You're going to put shoe size, and when I call on you, I want you to tell me your height, and we're going to put our height in inches. Now, some of you might know your height. Maybe you are 5 feet 2 inches. We're going to put it in inches, which means you have to take 5 times 12, which gives us 60, plus the 2. So if you happen to have a shoe size 7 and you are 5 feet 2, you'd put 7 and 62. Okay? If you happen to have a size 9 and you are 5 foot 5, you would have 65 inches. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call on each of you. We are going to give your shoe size and your height. And as you give me your shoe size and your height, we are also going to then be thinking of plotting those. So if I had to plot the point 7, 62, so I'm going to go to 7, and then I'm going to go up to 62, and 762 would be here. I'm going to go to size 9. 9 was at 65. Okay, so you're going to have a lot of data points clustered, I would think, around in here. We're probably not going to have many people that have a size 1 or 2, right? And we're not going to have probably someone that is 25 inches tall, right? 2 feet, a little over 2 feet. So most of our data points are going to be in this region. And again, we'll pause this video and then we'll come back to it. We'll switch to the document camera. You're going to plot this in the notes, and each class is going to be different and unique. When we look at what is univariate, univariate is involving a single variable. So when we think about univariate, we're talking about a single variable. When we talk about bivariate, we are talking about two variables. And if you look at this chart, these are kind of the pieces of information that we can think about. Univariate, we can't show cause and effect, but with our height and our shoe size, that could have a cause and effect. The taller you are, the bigger your shoe. The bigger your shoe, the taller you are. Now, does it always work? No. When we are looking at univariate, this is what we put for our shoe size. We could find the mean, mode, median, the dispersion. So first there's central tendency. There's dispersion. What's the range? Variance, we didn't talk about. Maximum, minimum. Quartiles, that is going to come up some. Standard deviation. What's the frequency distribution? How could we display it in a bar graph, pie graph, all the different types, box and whisker? And the question might be, how many students in the freshman class? That would be univariate. Okay. Sample of bivariate. Question, a relationship between the number of females in computer programming and their scores in mathematics. So maybe the more, if you are a female in programming, you might have a very high math aptitude, or vice versa, or the middle. These are different things that we can look at with two variables. Does one cause the other? Is there a correlation? Is there a relationship? We might look at tables, we might look at graphs. We're going to usually have an independent and a dependent variable as we look at ours. So as we look at our categorical data, we are going to compare two things. We're going to look at hair color and we're going to look at gender. When we look at these two things, hair color and gender, it says, what kind of display could we use? Well, we could use a number line, what we talked about. We could use a coordinate graph. But this data before down here is going to be in a table. When we use a table, a lot of times we're going to put down the color of hair that people have, and we'll do this together. And what we might do first is we might do tallies. So I might say, how many females have black hair? And you'd raise your hand, and we have 2 people. Females with brown hair, we have 3. And we have 1 blonde, or maybe 4 blondes in our class, no redheads. And other colors might be some of you that maybe are coloring your hair or have a different color, and maybe we have 1 person. Okay, so this is how we could display this. How many total females happen to be in my class? 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 4 is 9, plus 1. Our total females in the class should be 10. If we are looking at males with the same thing, we again are going to have you raise your hand, and we might look at, oh, there were 4 males with black hair, there were 5 with brown hair, there were 3 blondes, we had no redheads, and we had 2 with other colors. So again, what would my total be if I'm looking at this? The total number of males in my class, 9, plus the 5 gives me 14. So if I was looking at, and I wanted to also find in this table, and another way we're going to do this is we're going to put the totals here. And if I'm looking at the totals, could I tell how many people had black hair? 6. How many had brown hair? 8. How many had blonde hair? 7. No redheads in any of my classes for the period that we did. And we have 3 people that are other. Total should be 24 people, and we can add that both ways. So if we're looking at 7 plus 3 is 10, plus 14, that gives us 24, and 10 plus 14. So finding the totals in each one, we can now keep track of each of these. Now, this is just another way to display the data. We're not going to do the in-class survey. We're just going to look at this information, and we will then kind of practice and looking at the next page in your notes is it categorical or is it numeric data? So what I want you to put behind each one is an N for numeric and a C for categorical. And I want you to do that first on your own, and then I'm going to reveal and show you what each of these are. So pause the video. You are either going to put like the number of pets the students have in class. If we're looking at the how many pets the students have in our class, that should be numeric because we're asking how many. 1, 2, 3. If we are looking at what's your favorite sport, that is definitely going to be categorical. So pause the video. Please take a look, and then when you start it up, you will see the answers. So if we are looking at each one of these, you're going to see that I have put down, as we are looking at these, the different data points. So you can see how I labeled my answers, putting the numerical, categorical for each one. If there's questions or something you're not sure about, we can discuss that. And it says which statements represent univariate and which ones are bivariate. And as we look at this, bivariate is when we're going to compare 2. If I'm comparing 2 of them, this one is going to be my bivariate, as is this next one. If we're looking at the rest of the information, all the rest of it should be univariate. We are only looking at one piece of information. So when we look at the U up here, what does that mean? It means univariate or bivariate. Your homework is going to be in lesson I1. As you look at this homework assignment, what you are going to do is you need to kind of do a tally first, and I would suggest it kind of with a tally. Keep track of how many people are yeses. Now, if it's yes and yes, the easiest thing to do is to go down both these 2 categories. That would be 1 person is yes, yes. Then you're going to go to the next one. I have 2, 3, and you're going to put a number here. So you're going to total it, okay? The thing you do need to add in your notes or in your workbook is you need to put the total back here. You need to find that total for me. You also need to find the total at the bottom. So make sure you add this into your notes. And then as you do answer the question and using your information, you are asked to answer that question, and it does say use details from the table and make sure you explain your answer. And we will take a look at these answers tomorrow in class.